Welcome to our deep dive into Helen of the Congo. A it's a book that's got me thinking about humanity in a whole new way.
It really does blend adventure and philosophy
Yeah.
in a way that's
Oh,
both captivating and intellectually stimulating.
yeah, definitely. So at the center of it all is Song Girl and Aziza. What struck me was how the book didn't just say like, "Hey, here's a hidden species." It actually delved into their potential origins, suggesting they might be an offshoot of Homo erectus, a branch of humanity that evolved kind of differently.
Yeah, that detail elevates the story beyond just mere fantasy. I mean, it makes you consider the vast possibilities of human evolution and
Yeah.
how much we still don't know about our own past.
Exactly. Right. And their physical traits, the long black fur, pale skin,
Yep.
and those prehensile toes. It's intriguing. They sound more like a creature from mythology than a scientific possibility.
But that's where the book gets really interesting.
Yeah.
It subtly hints that their unique traits could be the result of
Hmm.
specific genetic adaptations to their environment, possibly even epigenetic changes, passed down through generations. It's like the author is playing with the boundaries of what we consider scientifically plausible, and they're inviting us to stretch our imaginations.
Yeah, and it works. I found myself considering those possibilities, even if they sound outlandish at first. Plus, there's this whole other layer of social structure and cultural complexity. They live in a hidden, sustainable community deep within the Congo, safeguarding ancient knowledge for centuries.
And that knowledge is key. The book suggests they possess a deep understanding of natural medicine, sustainable living, and even consciousness itself.
It makes their decision to remain hidden from modern humans even more fascinating. You have to wonder, what have they seen or experienced that made them choose such a path?
It's a question that lingers throughout the book. Is it fear wisdom, or perhaps a combination of both? It definitely makes you question the true cost of our so-called progress.
Totally. Now, the story kicks off when Song Girl is captured by poachers and mistaken for a chimpanzee, sold to a research facility in Kinshasa.
That moment of mistaken identity is so crucial. It highlights the human tendency to categorize and label, often overlooking the inherent value and complexity of the unknown.
Yeah, and it sets the stage for her encounter with Alex Schluterman, the American from the U.S. Embassy in Paris. He's struggling with a failing marriage, a sense of purposelessness, pretty much the opposite of someone connected to ancient wisdom.
He represents the modern world, skeptical and cynical, lost in the maze of his own life.
So imagine his reaction when this chimpanzee starts speaking to him. Not just grunts or simple phrases, but complex thoughts and philosophical insights.
It's a turning point for Alex. He initially dismisses her, compares their communication to the bond he had with his old black cat, thinking he could tell her anything without judgment. But as she continues to speak, calling herself Helen and revealing her knowledge, his skepticism begins to crumble.
It's like she's cracked open his reality, forcing him to confront the limitations of his own worldview. And then she drops the bombshell. She believes in reincarnation and claims to have memories of past lives.
And not just any past life, one connected to the Trojan War. She describes knowing Achilles personally, even offering a new perspective on his famous heel. It wasn't a vulnerability, she claims, but a deliberate choice to conceal the myrmidons' true nature as dryads, tree spirits protecting their forests.
That part blew my mind. Suddenly, this fictional story was intertwining with history, mythology, and spiritual concepts in a way I never expected.
It's a brilliant way to challenge our assumptions about history
Yeah.
and the narratives we've been taught to accept as truth.
Right, and it made me think how much of what we consider history is simply one side of the story.
Exactly. Helen's perspective forces us to consider alternative interpretations, to question the dominant narratives that shape our understanding of the world.
It's like she's peeling back layers of perception, revealing a deeper reality beneath the surface. And then there's her music. I mean, this woman plays the harp and sings opera. She even performs the music of the night for Alex.
Her musical talent is more than just entertainment. It's a conduit for her teachings, a way to convey emotions and spiritual insights that transcend language. She describes her music as a hymn to the eternal light within us all, drawing parallels to Rumi's poetry.
So it's not just about hitting the right notes, it's about touching the soul.
Right? Precisely. And this is just the beginning of Helen's journey. Her path is about to intersect with forces that threaten everything she holds dear, forcing her to make choices that could change the world as we know it.
It's safe to say things are about to get a whole lot more complicated. We'll delve into those complications and the deeper implications of Helen's story when we return for part 2 of our deep dive. Welcome back to our deep dive into Helen of the Congo. Left off with Alex's world being completely upended by Helen's existence and her incredible ability.
It's a powerful setup. you know, demonstrating how encountering the truly extraordinary can shake us out of our complacency and force us to reconsider everything we thought we knew.
Absolutely. And as Alex grapples with this newfound understanding, Helen's presence begins to ripple outward. Remember, she's not just a philosophical powerhouse. She's also an incredibly gifted musician.
And it's through her music that she really connects with the world. Beyond the research facility, the book describes her concerts at the Palais Garnier, where she performs a mix of opera classics, like Puccini arias, and Rumi-inspired songs, blending languages and styles seamlessly.
The descriptions of those concerts are captivating. It's like her music creates a bridge between the ancient and the modern, the spiritual and the material.
What's fascinating is that the audience doesn't even need to understand the words
Mhm.
to be moved by her performances. The book highlights how people from all walks of life are drawn to her music, describing it as a visceral, emotional experience that transcends language barriers.
It's like she's tapping into a universal longing for connection, a yearning for something beyond the everyday.
Exactly. And it's not just the average Parisian who's captivated. Even the French president is drawn to Helen's unique abilities and the message she embodies. He recognizes her as something extraordinary, offering her protection and a place to live.
It's a powerful moment, showing how her influence extends to the highest levels of society. But even with this newfound support, danger is still lurking. Those poachers who captured Helen Outry and Percy, they haven't given up.
Their persistence speaks to the conflicting forces at play in the story. On one hand, they represent greed and exploitation, the dark side of human nature that seeks to profit from the unique and the vulnerable.
But it's not quite that simple, is it? I mean, the book hints at a certain complexity in their motives. They seem almost obsessed with Helen, fascinated by her even as they try to capture her. They even use the ELE magazine article about her to try and track her down.
It's as if they're drawn to her light, even as they operate in the shadows. There's a recognition, perhaps even a subconscious envy, of something they lack, a connection to something larger than themselves.
And this duality plays out in a thrilling confrontation at the Eiffel Tower. Remember, Helen isn't alone. She has Dew, her black leopard companion, and the Aziza warriors led by her uncle Arthur, watching over her.
That scene is a masterclass in blending action and symbolism. You have the Aziza embodying ancient wisdom and a deep connection to nature, clashing with ninjas hired by the poachers, who represent a more modern, detached approach to power.
It's a battle between two worldviews, playing out against the backdrop of one of the most iconic structures in the world.
And in the end, good triumphs. The poachers are apprehended, thanks to the combined efforts of the Aziza Alex and even to you. But the victory is bittersweet. The events at the Eiffel Tower serve as a stark reminder that Helen's existence is a threat to certain powerful forces.
The poachers may be gone, but the book makes it clear that they were merely pawns in a larger game. Right. Remember those mysterious Russians we mentioned earlier? They've been operating in the background, using advanced technology to track Helen's every move, and their motives are far from altruistic. It's like the author is weaving a web of intrigue, suggesting a global power struggle with Helen at the center.
And this struggle reaches a climax in a shocking twist at the end of part 2, after her grand finale concert at the Palais Garnier. A concert meant to be a celebration of her freedom and her message. Helen is kidnapped.
That moment when she gets into the wrong limousine, with Atri and Percy frantically trying to warn Alex, it's heart-stopping.
Yeah.
You realize that even with the poachers apprehended, Helen is still in danger.
It's a masterful cliffhanger, leaving us on the edge of our seats, desperate to know what happens next. Who are these Russians, and what do they want with Helen?
And will Alex and the Aziza be able to rescue her? We'll have to dive into part 3 to find out. Welcome back to our deep dive into Helen of the Congo. When we left off, Helen had just been kidnapped by the Russians, right after her triumphant concert. Talk about a cliffhanger.
It's a brilliant twist. That raises the stakes and forces us to confront the darker implications of Helen's unique existence. You know, throughout the book, there's been this undercurrent of global intrigue, but this moment really brings it to the forefront.
Right, and it's not just about the Russians wanting to exploit her abilities. The book subtly hints at a deeper philosophical conflict, a clash between the Aziza's ancient nature-centric worldview and a more modern, technologically driven approach to power.
Exactly. The Russians represent a society obsessed with control, with harnessing technology for dominance, even if it means sacrificing those deeper connections to nature and spirituality. And Helen, with her ancient wisdom and extraordinary abilities, becomes a symbol of resistance to this kind of thinking.
So it's not just a rescue mission, it's a battle for the soul of humanity.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
And the way the author portrays the Russians' use of technology, is particularly thought-provoking. They're not just using brute force, they're employing sophisticated surveillance techniques, even managing to jam the Aziz's communication network.
It's like the book is saying that even ancient wisdom and a deep connection to nature can be vulnerable to modern technology. It's a chilling reminder of the power dynamics at play in our world.
Absolutely, but instead of resorting to a typical action-packed climax, the book takes a more introspective turn. We don't see a daring rescue or a final showdown. Instead, the story shifts to a quiet breakfast meeting, a moment of reflection and reconciliation.
That surprised me. I was expecting a more traditional resolution, with Helen escaping and the Russians being brought to justice.
But this unexpected choice makes the ending all the more powerful. The focus shifts from external conflict to internal transformation. We see Atri, the former poacher, expressing remorse for his actions and outlining his plans to start an ecotourism business in Africa. He even describes Helen's final concert as the most beautiful thing I have ever seen or heard, comparing it to a religious experience.
That's a profound change from the Atri we met at the beginning of the book. What do you think triggered this transformation?
It's subtle, but the book suggests that Helen's unwavering belief in the interconnectedness of all things, her message of love and compassion, planted a seed in Atri's heart. It's as if her music, her presence, chipped away at his cynicism, revealing a deeper longing for meaning and connection.
It's like the book is saying that even those who seem lost in greed and exploitation are capable of change.
Exactly. And this theme of transformation extends to Percy, Poetry's partner, who also expresses a desire to make amends for his past actions. It's a reminder that redemption is possible, even for those who have strayed from the path.
So what about Helen? What becomes of her after the kidnapping?
The book leaves that deliberately ambiguous. We know she's safe, and that she's reunited with Alex Arthur and the others. But her ultimate fate, whether she stays in Paris or returns to her people in the Congo, is left open to interpretation.
That's interesting. It's like the author is inviting us to imagine our own ending to the story.
Precisely. And this ambiguity underscores a central theme of the book, the importance of choice. Helen, despite her extraordinary abilities and ancient wisdom, is still faced with choices that will shape her destiny. And those choices are not easy, nor are they presented as simple binaries. It's a reminder that life is complex, full of nuances and gray areas.
It's a powerful message, one that stays with you long after you finish the book.
I agree. For me, Helen of the Congo is more than just a captivating story. It's a meditation on what it means to be human. In a world increasingly driven by technology and a thirst for control, it's a reminder to embrace our connection to nature, to seek wisdom beyond the confines of logic and reason, and to recognize the transformative power of love and compassion.
And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into Helen of the Congo. What a journey.
Indeed, it's been a fascinating exploration of a book that challenges our perceptions and invites us to reimagine the possibilities of human existence. Until next time, keep diving deep and keep questioning the narratives that shape our world.